My parents abandoned me in the hospital to go on vacation. What I did afterward changed everything. I was rushed into the hospital, and my parents simply said, "Handle it yourself. You're not a kid anymore," while they happily left for the family trip I had financed. That's when I decided to cancel the hotel, void the plane tickets, and sell the house where they had been living comfortably. It all began a few months earlier when my parents, Isabel and Gonzalo, along with my younger brother, Jorge, started telling me that I needed to learn how to enjoy life a little more. I am a petroleum engineer, and although I don't like to brag, I make a very good salary. I've never been the kind of person to waste money on whims, but I've always tried to manage it with discipline and responsibility. My parents, on the other hand, have never had any sense of order when it comes to finances. For as long as I can remember, they've always depended on me to cover expenses, groceries, utility bills, and even the house we lived in. Yes, that house was mine. I had bought it 5 years earlier, mostly because my parents convinced me that the right thing to do was to keep the family together, and that, as the eldest son, it was my duty to guarantee that we all had a safe place to live. Naively, I accepted that burden. The idea of a family vacation came from my mother, Isabel. One night, while we were having dinner in the living room, she started talking about how I worked too much and never gave myself a chance to enjoy the money I earned. "Wilson, you should give yourself a break, son," she said with that soft tone she always uses when she wants something from me. "We don't have much money, but you do. Why don't we all go on a trip together? It will be the perfect chance to enjoy as a family." My father, Gonzalo, nodded in agreement while still chewing on a piece of chicken that, of course, I had paid for. Jorge, my brother, who had never lifted a finger to work in his life, immediately jumped with excitement. "Yes, Wilson, let's go to the beach, to a luxury hotel. You can pay for it, right?" he said enthusiastically. I don't know how I allowed myself to be convinced. I suppose it was that guilt they've always instilled in me. The idea that if I don't support them financially, I'm a bad son and a bad brother. They know exactly how to manipulate me. They've been doing it for years. After weeks of constant pressure, I finally gave in. I began searching for a vacation package at a paradisiacal beach, with accommodations in a 5-star hotel, business-class plane tickets, and all kinds of activities included. It was a full plan for 4 people. The cost? More than $15,000. I withdrew the money from my savings, made the reservation, and paid everything up front. My parents and Jorge were ecstatic, talking about the trip as if it were the greatest event of their lives. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sort of relief, as if maybe I was doing the right thing. I thought perhaps they were right, that maybe those vacations would help strengthen our bond as a family. The night before the trip, we decided to go out for a simple dinner. Near the house, there was a food stall we had all been wanting to try. It was one of those places lit with colorful bulbs, loud music, and the smell of fried food filling the air, making you hungry instantly. My parents and Jorge ordered huge hamburgers, loaded with meat, cheese, bacon, and every sauce imaginable. I, who have never been much of a fan of hamburgers, ordered a hot dog with mustard and onions. We ate while laughing, and for a moment everything seemed perfect. We talked about the trip, how we would spend hours under the sun at the beach, and the excursions we had planned. I felt happy, as if at last I was doing something meaningful for them. We got home around 10 o'clock at night. I was exhausted, so I said good night and went up to my room. While brushing my teeth, a strange pain began to form in my stomach. It wasn't unbearable, more of an uncomfortable heaviness, as if I had eaten something too greasy. I figured it was probably the hot dog, maybe too oily. I went to bed convinced that after a night's sleep, by morning I would be fine again. Big mistake. Around midnight, the pain intensified brutally, as if someone were squeezing my insides with an iron tool. I got up drenched in sweat and staggered toward the bathroom. There, I ended up vomiting everything I had in my stomach. My head was pounding, and I felt like I could lose consciousness at any moment. I tried to calm myself down, drank a bit of water, but the pain wouldn't go away at all. Fear started to take over me. I had never felt so bad in my entire life, and I realized something was really wrong. I staggered down to my parents' room. The door was slightly open, and I saw them sound asleep. "Mom, Dad," I whispered weakly, I feel really sick. I think I need to go to the hospital. My mother barely opened her eyes, still half asleep. What's wrong, Wilson? She mumbled lazily. I explained as best as I could what I was feeling, but my father, without even bothering to sit up, answered almost yelling. Stop bothering, Wilson. Handle it yourself. You're not a kid anymore. My mother nodded and turned over in bed, as if nothing had happened. I stood there for a few seconds, in disbelief, thinking maybe they were too tired to understand the seriousness of the situation. With the little energy I had left, I decided to try with Jorge. I went into his room and found him snoring, his phone still in his hand. Jorge, please, help me. I feel really bad, I said, almost begging. He opened his eyes, annoyed, and looked at me with disgust, as if I were an annoying insect. Shut up already, Wilson. You sound like a little girl with your whining. Let me sleep, he said, turning his back on me. A mix of anger and helplessness washed over me, but I was so weak I couldn't even argue. There was no one else to turn to. With my last bit of strength, I pulled out my phone and called a cab. I barely managed to give a driver my address. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Everything was spinning around me, and the pain was unbearable. When we arrived at the ER entrance, my legs gave out, and I collapsed. I woke up the next day in a bed, with tubes connected to my arm and a nurse checking my vital signs. My whole body ached, but at least I was alive. Shortly after, the doctor came in and explained what had happened. Severe food poisoning, probably caused by that hot dog from the food stall. I had arrived just in time. If I had waited only a few more minutes, my body wouldn't have resisted. I had been on the brink of death. I was in intensive care, weak, scared, but what overwhelmed me most was an indescribable fury. The first thing I did was ask myself where my family was. They knew perfectly well I was sick, that I had asked for help, and yet they hadn't lifted a finger. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and called my mother. When she answered, what I heard left me frozen. Laughter, cheerful voices, and the unmistakable sound of the ocean in the background. Mom, I'm at the hospital, I said weakly. I had severe poisoning. Please come. Her response hit me like a bucket of ice water. Oh, Wilson, that's not possible. We just got to the beach, and soon we'll be heading to the hotel. You're strong. Take care of yourself. Don't be so dramatic. I couldn't believe it. They had gone on the trip. The same trip I had paid for. Without me. Without even asking how I was doing. Filled with rage and despair, I dialed my father's number, convinced he would be more sensible. Wilson, don't make a scene, he told me, annoyed. We're on vacation. Solve your own problems. Then he hung up. I tried calling Jorge, but he never answered. I felt a mix of pain and anger that I can't even describe. There I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for my life, while they were enjoying the beach, spending my money like nothing had happened. At that moment, something inside me broke forever. I no longer saw them as my family. They were simply parasites. With the little strength I had left, I picked up my phone again and made 2 key calls. The first one was to the hotel. I canceled all the rooms I had reserved. The second one, to the airline. I canceled the return flights. I wasn't going to allow them to enjoy a single second more at my expense. Not even 2 hours had passed before my phone began ringing nonstop. It was my mother, completely frantic. What did you do, Wilson? She screamed on the other end of the line. They kicked us out of the hotel. They say you canceled the rooms. We're standing on the street with our luggage, exhausted, and we have nowhere to sleep. My father grabbed the phone, furious. This is unacceptable. Call the hotel immediately and pay for the rooms again. It's your obligation. Jorge also wrote to me, filling my inbox with insults and calling me selfish. I was shaking with anger, but at the same time, I felt liberated, so I finally let out everything I'd been holding back for years. You're just users. You never cared about me. You left me alone when I was on the verge of dying and went off to spend my money as if I didn't exist. You're not my family. You never were. My mother tried to cut me off, but I didn't let her. You don't have return flights. You don't have a hotel, and you don't have my money. Figure it out on your own, because you're not kids anymore. And I hung up. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had regained control. A day passed since I had canceled the hotel reservations and the return flights, and my phone didn't stop vibrating with calls and messages from Isabel, Gonzalo, and Jorge. I didn't answer any of them. Every time I opened a message, I found a mix of insults, pleas, and emotional blackmail. "Wilson, you're heartless. How can you do this to us?" my mother wrote. "Pay for the hotel immediately, or you'll regret it," threatened my father. Jorge, in his usual style, only sent insults. "You've always been an idiot, and you still are." I read each one of those messages calmly, one by one, but I refused to respond. I wasn't going to fall back into their game. While I lay in a hospital bed, hooked up to tubes, and surrounded by the constant beeping of the machines, I started shaping my next move. Leaving them stranded at the beach wasn't enough. I needed them to feel what I had felt, the abandonment, the despair, the betrayal. I wanted them to understand that they could no longer live at my expense. That's when an idea came to my mind, one that had been circling there for a while: the house. That same house I had bought with my savings, with the naive illusion that it would serve as a home for all of us. They had never put a single cent toward the mortgage, the bills, nothing. They lived there as if they were the owners, but in reality the property was in my name, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. The 5th day in the hospital marked a turning point. I still felt weak, as if I had just run a marathon without training, but the doctor came in with the news I had been waiting for. "Wilson, you're out of danger now," he said while reviewing my chart. "You need to rest, take your medication, and avoid any strain for a couple of weeks." I nodded, although my mind wasn't on resting. I was thinking about the next step I was going to take regarding my family. When I was finally discharged and returned to the house, I opened the door and everything was exactly the same as the night I had been rushed to the hospital. The dirty dishes from dinner still in the sink, Jorge's clothes thrown across the couch, my mother's shoes at the entrance. It was as if time had stood still. But for me, everything had changed. I sat in the living room, my body still fragile, and made the decision I had been nurturing for days. I was going to sell the house. Not only because it legally belonged to me, but because it represented the last symbol of control they had over me. They lived there without contributing anything, as if entitled to everything, but that was over. I pulled out my phone and started searching for a real estate agency. I found one that offered quick sale services and had excellent reviews online. I sent them an email explaining that I wanted to sell my property as soon as possible, at an attractive price, so it would move quickly. I clarified that I was available to coordinate everything and that I needed the process to be agile. An hour later, I received a call from an agent named Carla. Her tone was kind, but very professional. "Mr. Wilson, I understand you want an immediate sale. Could you give me some details about the property?" she asked. I described everything: the size, the condition of the house, the area where it was located. I also told her I was willing to adjust the price if it meant closing the deal in just a few days. "Perfect," she replied. "To move forward, we'll need recent photos of the interior and someone present during buyer visits. Can you handle that?" I assured her that yes, I would take care of it myself. That same night, as I was organizing my things, I reflected on what was coming. Selling the house was only part of my plan. I also needed a new place to start fresh, somewhere I could rebuild my life far away from them. I searched online and found an apartment in a city an hour away. It was a modern place in a quiet neighborhood, ideal for someone wanting to cut ties with the past and start over. I went the next day to see it. The owner turned out to be very friendly, and after a brief conversation, we closed the deal that same day. I already had a new home. I told myself that if the house wasn't sold before my parents returned, I would simply move there and wait until the sale was finalized. That afternoon, Carla called me back with good news. "The photos are perfect. I already have 2 couples interested in the property. If everything goes well, we might have a solid offer in a couple of days." I asked her to speed things up as much as possible. I didn't want my family to return before the transaction was completed. I had no idea how they were surviving at that moment. Since I was the one covering all their expenses, they were surely struggling, maybe sleeping somewhere improvised while trying to get money to return. Just 2 days later, Carla arrived with a couple to show them the house. The visit was a success. They were delighted with the property, and that same day, we closed the sale. They transferred the money directly into my account. We agreed that I would hand over the house within 3 days, enough time to clear out. I contacted a moving company and explained what I needed: to move all of my belongings to the new apartment, but to pack my family's things separately in boxes and leave them at the entrance. I didn't want to give them any excuses to claim anything later. The company had no problem and set a date. The next day, they arrived right on time. For strong men, a large truck, and dozens of empty boxes. I calmly explained what they needed to do. My things went to the new apartment. My parents' and Jorge's belongings had to be boxed and left aside. They nodded and got to work immediately. I supervised every movement, making sure nothing got mixed up. My books, my clothes, my computer, everything that was truly mine was carefully packed. Meanwhile, my parents' and Jorge's things, their clothes, their cheap trinkets, their accumulated junk, were tossed into boxes without any care. Honestly, I didn't mind. I didn't feel they deserved any consideration. We were almost done when a taxi stopped in front of the house. My heart skipped a beat the moment I recognized, as soon as the doors opened, the figures of Isabel, Gonzalo, and Jorge. The three of them stepped out of the cab looking miserable, tired faces, dark circles under their eyes, and visibly wrinkled clothes. But when they saw the movers carrying belongings out, something in their expressions changed instantly. My father was the first to react. He ran toward one of the movers and tried to push him away, as if he could stop the inevitable. "What the hell is going on here? Put everything back inside. This is our house," he shouted, out of control. My mother froze in front of the stacked boxes at the entrance. She immediately recognized her clothes, her trinkets, the decorations she loved to show off. She held her head in her hands and began muttering over and over, No, this can't be happening." Jorge, meanwhile, saw me standing at the doorway and stormed toward me, fists clenched and face twisted in rage. "You damn traitor!" he yelled, ready to lunge at me. I, however, stood firm, calmer than I had been in years. "Stop," I ordered, raising my hand. My voice came out clear, though inside I was trembling with emotion. "The house no longer belongs to you. I sold it. Those boxes are the only things you have left." My father turned to me, eyes burning with fury. "What did you say?" "This is our house. You can't do this to us," he bellowed, as if his words could change reality. My mother broke down crying, collapsing to her knees beside the boxes, clutching some of her belongings as if that could stop what had already been done. "Wilson, please, don't do this. We're your family," she sobbed through tears. Those last words hit me hard. "We're your family." For years they had manipulated me with that excuse, but in that moment, it didn't weaken me. Instead, it gave me more strength. I took a step forward and looked the three of them straight in the eyes. "Family," I said, almost spitting the word. "Family doesn't abandon someone when he's on the edge of death. Family doesn't go sunbathing at the beach while their son is in intensive care. Family doesn't use one of their own like an ATM. You're not my family. You never were." My father tried to argue, but I cut him off firmly. "You left me alone when I needed you most. You told me to figure out myself, that I wasn't a kid anymore. Well, now it's your turn. Figure it out on your own." I pointed coldly at the boxes. "That's all you have left. Don't ever come looking for me again." I turned and walked toward the moving truck. The workers had finished, and my new apartment was waiting. As I climbed in, I heard my father's furious shouts, my mother's muffled sobs, and Jorge's curses. I didn't look back. For the first time in my entire life, I felt truly free. The ride to the new apartment was silent. The movers didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer any explanations. I just stared out the window, with a mix of exhaustion and relief running through my body. When we arrived, the place was exactly as I had last seen it. Clean, modern, with large windows letting in the afternoon sunlight. It wasn't a huge space, but it was enough. Most importantly, it was mine. There are no family memories embedded in those walls, no emotional debts, no constant guilt, no invisible chains tying me to anyone. It was a fresh start, a refuge where only my own will reign. For the first time in years, I felt that I truly had a home. The following days were strange, but incredibly liberating. I unpacked my things calmly, organized every corner of the apartment, and started working from home while still recovering physically. Little by little, my life began taking a new direction. The first thing I did was change my phone number and block Isabel, Gonzalo, and Jorge on all my social media. I never heard directly from them again. I suppose they picked up their boxes from the entrance and had to find some place to stay. Maybe they asked someone for help, or maybe they ended up in a temporary shelter. Honestly, I don't care. For the first time, I understood that their problems were no longer mine. That certainty gave me a peace I had never felt before. Because when I remembered that while I was on the verge of death, they turned their backs on me and went on vacation as if nothing had happened, I realized that even if I had died, they would have continued with their lives without looking back. After 2 weeks, my health was nearly back to 100%, and my life was beginning to take shape again. I had a new project at work. I was planning a trip, this time just for myself, and with each passing day, I felt a little lighter. Sometimes on quiet nights, I catch myself thinking about them. Not about what they are now, but about what they could have been. There was a time when I truly believed we could function as a family, that every sacrifice I made for them had some meaning. But that time is gone, buried along with my naivete. Today I know that family is not the one you are tied to by blood, but the one you choose, the one that proves with actions that they are with you in your darkest moments. I hope it's understood why I did what I did. It wasn't an act driven by hate or blind resentment. It was an act of justice. I did it for myself, for the Wilson who almost died in a hospital bed, alone, abandoned by those who were supposed to love and protect him. While they enjoyed the sea and the sand with the money I had provided, I was fighting against death. That Wilson no longer exists. I will never again be the man who carried everyone on his shoulders and allowed himself to be manipulated. Now I'm someone different, someone free. And that feeling, more than anything else, confirms to me that I made the best decision of my life.